Welcome to the MTSS Summit. This year, we're focusing on where MTSS meets mental health. The reason why we're focusing on this is, turns out schools are the primary setting where young people access needed mental health supports. And improved mental health and well-being are critical enablers to academic and eventual life success. My name is Clay Cook, and I'm the Chief Development Officer at Character Strong. I'm here today with Krystal Colhoff, who is the Director of MTSS at Austin Independent School District. And I've had the pleasure of being able to work with as the system is putting in place multi-tiered supports that promote students' social emotional well-being as enablers to their life success. She leads the MTSS team in Austin ISD to support campuses with training and tools that enable them to bring to life multi-tiered whole child supports that ultimately aim to promote both academic, behavior, and social emotional outcomes for students. Welcome to the MTSS Summit, Krystal.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. Yes, I'm super excited to be here and join you today.
Yeah, I want to for people to hear your story. And so one of the first things, if you could spend a couple of minutes, like how did you end up in education? Why are you an educator? And then what has inspired you ultimately to end up, leading MTSS work as something that you're passionate about?
Yeah, I actually in college was an occupational therapy major. Thought that's what I was going to do, prepared for that. And then I really kind of changed my focus when I was in college, when my younger brother passed away from suicide when he was a junior in high school. And what I found through that process was he actually had kind of missed almost the whole spring semester. The school had never really intervened. My parents hadn't been informed that he had missed like 40 days of school. So I immediately kind of changed my major to psychology and really focused on abnormal child psychology. And then just kind of got into education and really focused on special education behavior. And that kind of culminated in me kind of being in Austin ISD, where for the last 15 years, we've kind of spearheaded this idea that RTI and PBIS come together. And we called it child study teams. And one of the great things with our district was we realized early on was we needed to have all student data in one place. So about 15 years ago, we kind of developed this student dashboard. It's kind of a case management tool where we could pull in all that student data so that our child study teams could look at it in one stop and then really start to make some impactful decisions. And then it's also a documentation tool. So when we're responding to that data, we can document our services that we're providing in a variety of ways, because a lot of things that schools do and teachers do aren't actual interventions, but that tells the whole story of what we're doing to support a student. And then the other thing that I really, really love with the work that we do is we've made it historical data. So since we've had it for 15 years, our seniors have all the data from since they were in kindergarten. And that really gets you to see the whole student experience in our district when you're problem solving around a student. You really get to see the whole child and the needs and what they are passionate about and where things kind of change in their trajectory of education in our district. So that's what I love doing. My team's amazing. Austin tries to do a lot of really, really good work with the limited resources that we have.
Well, I've observed firsthand how amazing you and your team are, and I've been able to check out the data dashboard. That doesn't come about without passion and purpose that lies behind that. And it is truly an impressive tool. When you've shown it to me, my jaws drop because you don't often see like that level of innovation happening sometimes from, I think, a tech standpoint to bring all
Yeah.
the data into one place in a district. And it's just like, it's really cool to see. And that data piece, when you can tell a story of a student, it provides educators with information that they can act upon to really serve kids holistically from a whole child standpoint. Really impressive work.
Yeah, we're very excited, and having the technology team involved in it was really, really key. And they're our key partners. We meet with them weekly, and then we really kind of co-created it with our users on the campus. Like, what would you want to see when you're in a child study team meeting? What data are you missing? Why is it hard to access that data? And I think that's what's really helped us kind of build a really data-informed system.
And one of the reasons why I think you have an expertise and experience in human-centered design, because all of a sudden you have to design with the humans who are supposed to take in that information and use it. And that's one of your skill sets, is to really think it like humanize the work. Think about the adult humans who we have to really equip with data and tools to be able to follow through with what we know students need. I'm going to tee up this next question. At Character Strong, we think a lot about kind of low burden, high impact practices. And I want to start with tier one. Tier one obviously is every student, but really every adult implementing core practices for every student. And we can start to achieve really meaningful outcomes. Now, you spend a lot of time thinking about MTSS and tier one in particular. If you had to select one core tier one practice that every educator would implement for every student, what would it be in terms of promoting mental health as a way to promote students' academic engagement and performance?
For me, I really think in all my work, it's that building positive relationships with students with intentionality. And that's greeting students when they enter the school, greeting students when they're coming into your classroom, actively having these positive, engaging interactions throughout the day across the school building, and then having some type of positive farewell at the end of the day. What we've seen is when students have this positive relationship with the adults on campus, they begin to have this sense of community, and that sets the foundation for academic engagement. So for us, that's the very first thing we look at when we're looking at systems on a campus, is how are adults interacting with students and what's the intentionality behind that.
Yeah, I love that. And that's tier one work, relational interactions that cultivate that sense of belonging and connection to the learning environment. And kids dig in more to academics. They're more likely to persist. They're more likely to have a growth mindset in the context of positive relationships. Let me ask you this next question. How do you see mental health? So this, from this paradigm, let's think about school-based mental health. How does mental health work fit within an MTSS framework?
Yeah, I think that's like really kind of that foundational piece when you're kind of looking at the needs of all the adults and students in the building. For me, I see mental health as a factor for all the humans in the school building, the adults and the students, and the impact that mental health has on academics and behavioral success. When educators feel supported, when they feel prepared, and when they have a sense of belonging, then they can focus on their classroom instruction. When students feel supported, when they know they have an adult who's like in their corner, when they have a sense of belonging, their brains can now be primed to really kind of engage in that hard task of learning. So what my staff has found when we go out and coach classrooms is that when educators are stressed, or they're unfamiliar with the curriculum in some way, or do not have that sense of community in the building, it's more challenging for them to kind of respond to students in an instructional manner. What we find is instead they kind of resort to these quick knee-jerk responses that are usually a little bit more punitive in nature. And so most of our MTSS work is actually around the needs of the adults in the building, and how can we help them acquire some instructional response skills that help students, and how do we ensure they can focus on student needs. So it's, for us, it's a lot of adult coaching, and that's essentially kind of that mental health needs. And so for us, it's everyone in the building. It impacts the day. I can't get to teaching if I
Yeah, I mean, when we think about the adult piece is the critical components. If we want to get to outcomes for students, we got to think about what the adults need. And not only that, what we need, but what are we going to do on a day in, day out basis when it comes to the time we interface with students? And so, although we don't want to relinquish a focus on academics, we're finding opportunities to infuse certain practices that can promote mental health and well-being of students. And it does begin with us. It always starts with us, because if we're not feeling well, it's going to be hard to produce well and engage students. Now, think about, you do this work across many schools. Like Austin ISD is a large system.
yes.
A lot of the policies focus on academics. So when we think about integrating mental health or social, emotional, and behavioral supports, we're not saying diminish and slow down on the academics. What we're saying is we need to figure out, how do we integrate it in? What are some of the challenges that you've seen with educators when we're trying to integrate mental health supports with academics within an MTSS framework?
Yeah, I think it's that larger, just educational programmings that we have. If you look at our teacher prep programs or college programs, the focus is always just purely on that academic pedagogy, right? We don't really train teachers in the social emotional needs of students or that tier one behavior instruction, classroom management. Maybe you get a little sprinkling of it. So teachers come to us and they often feel overwhelmed and ill-equipped to give the level of support that our students need, along with a lot of those educational programs really kind of have a lag in responding to current social needs. They don't respond quickly enough. And when we look at the students and the needs that our students and families and educators have, that's changed from when I was in school. And they don't change quickly enough to give the staff what they need when they leave college. So we feel that really with our department, that's where we're kind of filling in the gaps and then also learning from others because we have some people that come in that just get it and they will find creative ways to kind of embed the structures they have, or maybe they'll just take a little piece of the curriculum that we've given them and they've kind of turned it into a different way of implementation. And so for us, we do a lot of show and tells. We do a monthly character strong implementation campus highlight, and we have found creative ways that they've implemented things. And then we just kind of learn from each other, but with that understanding that we have different students and different needs and different adults and different needs. Also, our educators teach differently and are employed differently than when I first started in school. And so we kind of have to change and be responsive to that. So for us, it's really kind of getting a feel constantly and being on the campus. My staff is on campuses 4 days a week to really know what educators need, what students need, and to kind of collaborate and co-create new professional learning and changing ways that we do things to meet the needs that our students are showing us.
Yeah, I love the part around when people are feeling overwhelmed and outmatched. It's a signal to like everybody out of the water because if the adults are feeling overwhelmed and outmatched, there's a support that we're missing to provide for the adults that increase because ultimately the best thing for young people are adults who are collectively have confidence and we call it collective efficacy. It's the number one predictor and often we get signals that hey, our adults aren't feeling that confident collectively to meet the needs that students are bringing to the educational table. And so I like what you're saying here is we got to be responsive to that and then go in and be willing to be on their level and hear what they need in order to move the work forward. Because once we have competent and confident adults, that's the best predictor of being able to achieve meaningful outcomes for young people, especially when it's things that they may have not been traditionally trained in, like you're saying, like on the social, emotional, and behavioral side of things.
Yeah.
I'm going to move our conversation to tier two and tier three. Now, obviously, we want really good prevention. Tier one investment is an investment in bringing to life prevention. We also know, going on eyes wide open, there's going to be students who need even more than that, in addition to, not in replacement of tier one. What do you believe is needed to increase student access to tier two and tier three supports? Actually, take this idea of early intervention and make it come to life in schools. What do you think is needed?
Well, I think for us, we've seen with our schools like two barriers, and I usually don't like using the word barriers, but it's that strong. Number one is finding time during the day to do intervention for all the interventions that we have. And then number two, having a well-written evidence-based intervention curriculum. We continue to rely on adults in the building to do all the things. And that's just asking way too much. I don't have time to really do effective instruction in math and reading and all the things and dual language. And then on top of that, then build some behavioral lessons that I might not have expertise in. And so for us, we've really made sure that we've given campuses time. And so we've been intentional with that. So our campuses that are doing really, really well have built intentional time for intervention into their master schedule. They have structured things in a way that Their tier one is solid. I have tier one PBIS stuff in place. I'm using Character Strong regularly on a weekly basis. And then that then starts to kind of eliminate some of the students that are trickling up to tier two, tier three, because that also starts to drain our resources when we're past our capacity for intervention. So making sure that all those pieces are in there, and then simultaneously, how do we then find that time to do some root cause analysis and problem solve? And when time's limited, we can't ask a team of educators to spend 45 minutes problem solving around one student. So how do we have tools for them that are quick and easy, that I can match appropriately students with their needs to an intervention that will fill that gap? And so really making sure we have all those pieces in place, and removing that barrier for lesson planning has been huge for us. When we continue to work in building up strategies for campuses to use when they're supporting their students, effectively using those evidence-based practices, and then carefully finding community members that can be campus-based or partners that can also help come in, because we don't have enough staff to do it either. So how do we kind of cultivate all of those pieces? Because we just can't keep asking classroom teachers and administrators to do it all without providing those resources to help eliminate some of those challenges when they support the whole child. It's just something that we're really, really passionate about, is making sure that they can use it effectively, and then find that time. And then what can we remove to help them be able to do that?
I love it. Everything you're saying to me is like under the umbrella of capacity. First of all, we have to find the time. Sometimes our master schedule is our worst enemy to be able to bring this work to life, because we haven't carved out the protected time for this work to happen. But within that time, if we're not delivering quality support, and that's where the evidence-based part, we're increasing capacity to actually produce an outcome with the higher quality supports we implement, and that's evidence-based. And then it's recognition, eyes wide open, that we will tap out. We need strategic partners, because we don't necessarily have enough people on our payroll, but that's where strategic partners come in, and we bring those partners in, and they could be co-located, they could be telehealth, but we can start to increase our capacity through our partnerships as well. And then we're using our time wisely. I could spend perhaps all day chatting with you. I want to start to bring us over the finish line here. We say a Character Strong, people need to be reminded more than they need to be taught. What is one thing you'd want to leave people with as a reminder to try to get MTSS right as we integrate kind of mental health supports with academics?
Yeah, I think it really kind of comes to that human-centered design that my team really kind of focuses on. Is that one takeaway for us is that relationships matter, and that sense of belonging is the foundation for an effective school environment. But this includes the students and the adults in the building, and we tend to forget about the adults if we're not intentionally supporting the staff. They won't have capacity to meet students where they're at and really intervene with the way students need. So the mental health of staff is equally as important as the mental health of the students. Staff cannot pull from an empty well, and the district has a responsibility to continue to replenish that well so that we can take care of ourselves, we can continue to serve. And so for us, we feel that we're servants of the campus and the teachers. And I think that for me, that's the biggest takeaway, is really supporting the adults is what will get the work to move forward even more.
That's awesome. There's three things, three words I just wrote down before today being able to spend some time with you, because I've been able to see you in action and being able to work. There's three words. Number one, it's passionate. Then the second one is strategic. It does really require a strategic mindset, because there are so many constraints that this work operates within. And if we don't strategize, we'll just get stuck and spin. But it's kind of being able to work around some of those constraints to continue to move the work forward. And I would say, and you said it there at the end, you are human centered in terms of the relationships you leverage. But I think it's almost in that restorative perspective. It's like we got to create high accountability but high support from a human centered, because if we continue to behave the same way we're engaging, it's not good enough. So we got to constantly push behavior change among the adults, but we have to do it in a relationally effective way. And I've seen you do that firsthand. Krystal, how can people learn more about the work that you do or what's happening in Austin ISD?
Yeah, we love to connect with other districts. We're always welcome to other districts wanting to come and chat with us to see the things that we do. You can always reach me at my email, which is crystal.colhoff@austinisd.org. And you can reach out, and we love partnering and we love learning from other districts as well. And so it's really helpful. We attend a lot of different state seminars just so we can hear what other people are doing because we can't think of all the things. And so it really kind of takes all the communities coming together to really find ways to support our students and adults in schools.
Well, I hope you all have enjoyed this time with Krystal today. If there's one thing I'm taking away is that MTSS work is fundamentally human-centered work. And if we can get the human parts right, we start to really increase the potential of getting a return on our investment, which is our precious time, energy, and resources we dedicate to this work. Thanks for tuning in.